and too distasteful. And it was really just because the angle had gotten over so well with the Stomper and Bad News Allen. But, and the commission then suspended Bad News because he had hit a fan in the crowd, and the place had kind of rioted, had gone nuts, and the Stomper, went berserk, after his son Jeff, had been pile driven by Kerry Brown and Bad News Allen. Anyway, it was a major angle. It just got so much publicity, but unfortunately, Ed Whalen quit the show, and then the commission suspended my dad's license. Our business went down for the next 6 months, and it was really unfortunate, and my dad had just become so weary of losing money then in 6 months, and this replacement they brought in for Ed, he was Sam Menaker, who had been an experienced announcer in Indianapolis and even Australia, and he'd actually hosted my dad's show in the late 50s, early 60s. But when we brought him back in 1983, he just sounded terrible. He was old. He couldn't remember the wrestlers' names. And, and his speech was really slow and repetitive, and he couldn't keep up with the moves of the action. And I think all those factors kind of killed the TV show and our drawing power, in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Yet in Vancouver, we were on fire, and I think those were the key decisions my dad made to, sell a promotion. And I don't think he really wanted to compete with Vince McMahon, and he saw how well Vince was doing, when he acquired Hulk Hogan. And I think my dad saw the opportunity for some of his best stars like Brett and Dynamite and Davey Boy, Jim Neidhart to wrestle for WWF and get that exposure. So he sold the promotion to WWF, and that kind of ended the partnership with Bruce Allen, which was unfortunate because if that hadn't happened, maybe we could have risen above, and I don't know if we could have only recovered after what had happened in Calgary and Edmonton, but it was kind of a domino effect, when the commission censored our wrestling so much and the media backlashed the promotion, and Bad News Allen was described as out of control, and and he was going too far. Like he was using a fork in the ring and bloodying up guys and fighting outside the ring, and often wasn't doing what he was told in the ring. And he had drawn so much negative publicity, from the media and from the Boxing and Wrestling Commission, but they overzealously, though, suspended my dad's license as a result, and it just kind of killed our promotion, and I don't think Stampede ever really recovered from that, even when we opened back up in the mid 80s with Owen and Chris Benoit and Brian Pillman and kind of a new wave of stars. It never fully healed or recovered, from that period in late 1983. So, it's kind of a tragic chapter really for the Stampede promotion and my dad, but there is undeniably, though, so much potential in the partnership with Bruce Allen. And maybe if he could have launched Vancouver and the West Coast so successfully, he might have been able to do the same thing here, given a period of time. But unfortunately, my dad made the decision to sell the promotion to the WWE. And that's another story in itself because, Vince never paid my dad what he was supposed to. He was supposed to pay him, I think, $1 million for the rights to the promotion, the TV rights. They basically got the TV slots that Stampede Wrestling was on and got all of my dad's rings and really just the empire, because we had a huge promotion that ran all the way from Vancouver to, Winnipeg, and parts of Montana. So, so by them kind of taking over from the Stampede promotion, we had already established really good wrestling here. And then, he took our best stars, right? He took the Bulldogs, he took Brett and Jim. And then years later, you would take Honky Tonk Man, Bad News Allen, Owen, and others. So, but, they never honored their agreement. They only paid my dad, I think, like $50,000 for initial down payment for the sale of the promotion and nothing after that, So, in a sense, we got screwed in different ways, on the sale of the promotion.
Did you ever consider just maybe giving Calgary and Edmonton a break and just basing everything out of Vancouver for a while until it blew over with the commission and everything?
We could have. I don't know how we would have done television though. Like if you didn't have TV coverage, it was pretty impossible to run, and we didn't really have any contacts, in Vancouver, to establish TV tapings there, but it would have been an idea or an option. But I think just for a lot of the fans, they loved Ed Whalen at that time, and Ed was really hard to replace. And unfortunately, the one we replaced him with was kind of a dinosaur, right? He was so old and lethargic, and and it was kind of the exact opposite of Ed Whalen. Like he was dry, didn't have a sense of humor, and was really just out of touch with wrestling. And I think for my dad that was kind of humiliating because the success he once had with Sam Menaker, like in 1959, 1960. I think he thought he could duplicate, 25 years later. But sadly, that wasn't the case, So I think every wrestler, announcer, performer has their lifespan, and obviously Sam Menaker wasn't the right person, for that role, and pretty tough act to follow too, with Ed Whalen. But if we'd had someone though who was just a little more energetic and a little more colorful, it certainly would have made a difference, but unfortunately it was someone who's the opposite of that. And like, our TV audience has just plummeted, right? And the quality of the show was really bad because, he was announcing and doing everything. He was doing all the commentating and the announcing, and everything just came across as very stale and, just there's no interest, no pizzazz there, and there was, the opposite of what was happening with Vancouver, where people were so into the angles that we were doing there, and again, and we had kind of a complete separate identity. We were so hot on the West Coast, and again, that was largely because, we had some really good talent, but Bruce Allen was really promoting it well, using local celebrities and sponsors and just getting us really good coverage on radio spots and TV spots, so, and it was so interesting how we were struggling so much, in Alberta, especially in Calgary and Edmonton, after the fallout from Ed Whalen's resignation and the censorships of the Edmonton and Calgary commissions. And yet Vancouver, we were on fire. We were really hot. I remember we'd done an angle where Tiger Williams, who had played for the Maple Leafs, was refereeing a match, and I think with Ron Starr and Bruce, and then it ended up with Tiger Williams stepping in the ring, as a wrestler, and I think he tag teamed with Bruce against Ron Starr and the Great Gamma, and it just got over like crazy because he had played previously, I think, for the Canucks. I think, in fact, the Canucks had maybe traded him to Toronto or something, but he was so popular as an NHL enforcer and a tough guy, and then when all of a sudden he's in this ring and he's fighting these wrestlers, it just got over like crazy. And, I think we were in the Coliseum where the Canucks used to play at that time. We had over 10,000 fans there. It was just incredible how big wrestling was at that time, and then it was all over. My dad kind of secretly sold the rights to the whole territory and promotion out to WWF, and that was it, and we never could establish that partnership after. I think Bruce Allen was so disappointed and upset, with how that happened, that, he wasn't interested in doing anything years later, even when my dad restarted the promotion, and we did try running Vancouver, and we couldn't do it without him, unfortunately. And he had, I guess, kind of lost interest in wrestling at that point. And, it just seemed for a couple of years, though, we had a huge following on the West Coast, and we were so much better than All Star or any of the outlaw independent promotions there. But after that wave of success in '84, and then promotion just kind of shut down abruptly. That was it. We could never duplicate that again on the West Coast. So yeah.
This is a good question. Did Ed not know that it was a work, or was it just so over the top with what Bad News was doing that he just thought this is not what pro wrestling should be? I'm out of here.
Ed knew it was work, but he was very sensitive to some angles and issues. He was very sensitive about blood. Ed didn't like blood on television, especially if it was baby faces, who got split open, by a foreign object or something. Ed was very uncomfortable with blood, and he was very uncomfortable with certain heels, and he didn't mesh well with Bad News Allen. Allen was a little too over the top, came across as a kind of a black racist. I'm not saying he was, but that's how he came across, very anti-white, and he was at times very disrespectful with Ed in interviews. Ed kind of had his way in a lot of interviews with heels. I think he was careful not to do it with someone like David Schultz or the Stomper, but Bad News decided to kind of put him in his place a few times, and would physically grab the mic away from Ed and say basically just shut up, Big Bird, and listen to while I'm talking. And Ed felt really intimidated by that, and he was very uncomfortable doing interviews with Bad News, and you could just sort of sense there was bad chemistry between them. Allen thought he was kind of a smart aleck announcer that wasn't respecting him, and putting him over as a heel enough. And Ed felt very intimidated by Allen, and with all pressure from the commission, because they had suspended Allen 2 or 3 times for fighting outside the ring, for altercations with fans, and just not keeping safe boundaries, basically, going too far, like using a fork in the ring, brawling into the crowd. And when that happens, you're just inviting trouble. If a spectator gets hit by a wrestler, even though the wrestler maybe is defending themselves, the wrestler's going to be blamed. Or if it's sort of a spillover effect where there's brawling in the crowd, and then there's a stampede and all the fans are fleeing, and then somebody trips and falls, breaks their ankles, or gets injured because of the panic and chaos, the promotion is going to be held liable. And that was happening quite often with Allen, who just had too much heat. And when this angle was done, Ed was kind of aware, what we were doing, but he just fed too much into it. He just said, this is bad for the TV's image. It's bad for my image, and I have to walk away from it. And he made that decision. I'm quitting the show, and he just left. There's no negotiating with him. There was no reconciliation with Ed, and he didn't come back for a couple of years. And he set some pretty strong guidelines with my dad, about less blood, less violence, and he didn't want to be associated with anything that was too over the top. So, but Ed, yeah, it's funny. Even though he knew what was going on, sometimes he overreacted, and maybe was thinking more about his image and the station's image than what was getting over with fans, right? And I guess there had to be kind of a happy medium there. And with Ed, though, he was very conscious, though, of how the show reflected on his image, because he was a sportscaster first and foremost, and he was a commentator for the Calgary Flames, and he didn't want any negative association with something like wrestling that had become too violent or distasteful.
That's pretty amazing that you had the Calgary Flames announcer announcing wrestling.
Yeah, he was wrestling long before he ever did the hockey commentating, but I think it became very important to him. Being an analyst for the Flames, it was kind of a prized position for him, because the Global TV had the rights to the Flames telecasts then, long before there was TSN or Sportsnet or anything like that. And Ed coveted that role. He knew there was a lot of other sportscasters, that wanted that position, to be an announcer. And, he didn't want to give that up whatsoever. And that became kind of a priority, for him, to host the Flames games. And that was kind of tough for us because some Friday nights when there was a Flames game, he would be out of town, and contractually, I guess that's what he had to do because, he was an announcer for them. And yet I think, Ed was very realistic when he said that my dad always paid him more. He made more money announcing with my dad than he did for the Flames telecast. So my dad always paid him very well. And, when he was part of the show, he was a big drawing card as well. So, but, Ed though was very protective of his image. And when things he thought were too strong or out of hand, he would just make that decision to kind of walk away from it. And he did that a few times. And it was tough because there was really nobody else to replace him. We didn't have other announcers. It was sort of different than other territories where they often had independent announcers that didn't work for the TV station that were doing the color commentating. For us here, it was Ed Will, and with Global TV, and it was tough. We weren't in that position to kind of just put a wrestler in that slot. I think the fans were so accustomed to Ed, and he was a popular figure on the show. With his announcing and his humor, I guess, and even though he really wasn't knowledgeable about wrestling, he didn't know a lot of the holds or anything, but he could really keep up with the action. And the way he reacted, it was very much a babyface reaction when he saw the baby faces getting screwed and the heels getting away with cheating. He would react like that. And he was really the eyes and ears of the fans. And I think that's what made him so appealing to the show, but it also became kind of a weapon against us, when he just got up and left the show and quit, and put us in a position where we couldn't really replace him.
What was his cause of death ultimately?
Heart attack. Kind of interesting, Hannibal. He died 1 month after he spoke. I think it was 1 month after my mom's service. When my mom passed away in 2001, Ed gave a really lovely speech at her service. And then I think 1 month exactly after her service, he was at a nightclub in Florida. He was on a vacation there, I think, with Naomi, his wife, and he collapsed on the dance floor, and had a heart attack, and he died. I think he had some heart problems before, and I believe he had a pacemaker, but he was still very active. He was still doing sports casting for Global TV here, and and I don't think he was that old. I think he was maybe 73, 74 when he passed. I could be off, but yeah, and it was kind of ironic. Like a month after he had spoken at my mom's funeral, he collapsed and passed away in Florida at a nightclub while he was on vacation. But I guess that's not the worst way to go.
No, definitely not. And I do remember I was in Stampede at that time. You did do a 10 bells salute to him, but I was thinking to myself, he couldn't have been that old at that time. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans. I really appreciate your time and sharing of all your knowledge.
Yeah, I think just support all the local independent promotions. There's a lot of good talent on those shows. The Dungeon promotion has had some really great shows in Calgary. I'm hoping they'll expand and run other cities, besides Calgary. But there's other independent promotions as well in Calgary and Edmonton, Vancouver. I think there's a new promotion there, and a couple of good promotions in Saskatoon and Regina. A lot of good independents. So I think it's just important to support those shows and those stars, and the feedback and responses you give to them can really help them achieve their goals. And I've seen such good talent. I won't highlight any specific names, but I can definitely say some of the best talent in North America is right here in Western Canada. And a lot of these guys that I've seen performing on shows could easily fit the bill on AEW or WWE or New Japan, if they get those opportunities. So I think it's important for the fans to support those independent shows and give those wrestlers that feedback and the opportunity to perform and practice their craft.